I figured I'd inspect my things and decided to look for the bag I was clutching before, but then I realized it was gone. A shiver went down my spine. I sprang to my feet, but when I realized I was in bed, I suddenly remembered what happened last night. It wasn't this wasn't a booth in a dodgy internet cafe, but a house connected to a church, managed by a strange woman named Lisa. It had been a long time since I'd been able to sleep in a place where I could stretch out my limbs. It wasn't so bad to wake up without being in pain. It's a nice kitchen. Good morning! You're up early. Still in the worn-out clothing I'd borrowed last night, I walked into the living room where Lisa was sitting in the corner with a computer. Looking at the book-like organic display, it didn't look like she was she was just messing around. Except for Sundays, I usually get up around now. You're pretty disciplined for a runaway. I'm impressed. It's none of your business. Lisa shrugged her shoulders, turned back to the display, and hit a number of keys before standing up from her chair. You want breakfast? Judging from your name, your parents must be Japanese. Oh yeah, you already told me that. I wonder if I have any rice. And with that said, I didn't really have any appetite. That's alright. I got a chocolate bar in my bag. Like some coffee. But when I said that, Lisa looked surprised. Her beautiful almond-shaped eyes widened and seemed frozen in place. As long as my eyes have the black in them, I will always try to have 3 real meals a day. Your eyes aren't even black. It's a figure of speech. I looked away in disdain like a spoiled brat. In the end, Lisa prepared some bread, bacon, and eggs. A long time ago, the folks on Earth couldn't have imagined journeying beyond their planet and still being able to eat the same things that they did at home. In other words, they imagined food to be some strange colored supplement in a tube with who knows what kind of vaguely food-like nutrients in it. Sure, you could find stuff like that, but immigrants were surprised to find out that things on the moon's surface seem really no different from Earth. I didn't think too much about it. Do you have a net connection here? To me, the net connection was more important even than a silicon dioxide factory producing fresh oxygen. Theoretically, no matter where you were in this lunar city, you should be within range of a wireless signal, or the plan was originally. For areas where the cost-benefit performance of maintenance wasn't high, if the relay station broke, things would just stay that way. Besides, if you looked around, you could find public institutions with terminals free to use. The places with no wireless reception carved out the area like Swiss cheese. If I couldn't use the net here, I would have to find a place like the Big Bull Cafe again. However, I was hopeful because the computer Lisa was using was connected to the endless sea that was the net. What are you, some kind of net addict? Given that I also slept at the net cafe, I suppose you could say that I was. However, as I turned on my mobile PC, I was lost as to how I should respond. It wasn't against the law to say that I was trading stocks as a miner. From that point of view, it wasn't a problem to just say so. The problem was that I was raking in the cash by normal standards. Even for the 6th outer section, this appeared to be a lower income area. Did the inhabitants here earn just 1,000 moles a month? 2,000? Or better yet, did anyone here hold down any steady work? It wasn't very clear if this church had any money. A good poker player shows his hand. Never shows his hand. Whoops! Or so they say. So I should assume that they had some hidden away monetary reserves. I lowered my head like a turtle as I spoke. Something more important than even a name, perhaps? Lisa didn't even persist in asking my real name. At my words, Lisa's hand slowly stopped, and she looked right at me. Looking at her calm but displeased face, I was ready to say that I was enraptured by the pursuit of money. It isn't anything illegal, right? And the words that came out after that were those that I was sure would let me off the hook. That is definitely not the case. You have my word. In that case, I won't ask about it. That was unexpected. Lisa seemed to mouth those words a number of times. She smiled in slight puzzlement as she spoke. Boys are creatures who die without secrets. What? Make us seem like chatterboxes. I guess that's true. In my heart, I screamed out against being treated like a child, but were my lips to move, I would sound just like one. I chose to stay silent as I logged into my trading account. Those thoughts has long since been expelled from my mind completely. My concern turned towards the up and down movements of the digits and the flow of money it referred to. The market had fallen into disarray. One particular market on Earth was shaken up, and its repercussions were felt by the financial markets that tied the world together. Apparently, it was something about Russia sending forces into satellite countries because of natural gas fields. Typical stuff. With the conclusion of the Cold War, what brought the world together happened in an instant. After the panic of nuclear weapons in a small country in the Caucasus region, dubbed the Second Cuban Missile Crisis, mankind finally took a real look at the situation before them. Although the Cuban Missile Crisis was one of the actions that led to the end of the Cold War, it was also a confrontation between superpowers. In the Second Cuban Missile Crisis, it wasn't a confrontation between superpowers that brought the world together, but a confrontation between anarchic terrorists in the countries of the world. The result was the complete cooperation of the world, and the result to look towards the stars in preparation for another such movement. Everyone knew that there would always be disputes when it came to the utilization of land on Earth. These issues would be pigeonholed into a faraway place above and away, literally. With the development of the space elevator, major technological breakthroughs were made at breakneck speed during the development of lunar cities. However, just as eventually all memories fade over time, the moon strayed from their original goal as the world's utopia. After being firmly established, much like countries all over the world, it sought sovereignty and independence to the extent of maintaining its own independent military force. Thus, the countries on Earth turned their gaze from the sky to the ground again, having woken from their dream. This was the gist of what I could understand about the history of the world. I knew more minute details beyond this, but delving too deep would make it difficult to see the big picture. Thank you, game. My knowledge was entirely tied to stock trading after all. If there were to be a disturbance in some region of some country on the Earth, it would probably have a large impact on the people who lived there and the corporations which operated there, but it would have a small global impact. Where's my glasses? Oh, crap. Oh, well, anyways. And because there'd be little global impact, tragedies would continue on Earth. It was something that the immigrants from my town who were coming from particularly dreadful places on Earth had said, which had left the biggest impression on my mind. Looking down at the Earth from the space elevator, I could see that all the dreadful problems out there grew smaller and smaller, much like the place of my birth. Even to this day, there were places on Earth where missiles fell more than rain did. There was a rise in the number of unskilled laborers wanting to come to the moon, especially those who no longer wanted to live on Mother Earth anymore. The real kicker was that the peoples of the developed world seemed to know absolutely nothing about the world outside of their borders. Yup. Here everyone more or less knew about these rising problems. When it came to this energetic bunch in their stubbornly resolute mindset, what was hidden eventually became known. Their mantra was, "We will not allow this to become another Earth." It was a great concept. I'd like more of this. If nothing else, I'd like to continue to partake in free handouts like that. Strangely, even when I was completely focused on stock trading, the more I concentrated, the more another part of me started waking up. It felt like I had two personalities within me. When I sighed after completing my trades, it really did feel like I'd locked out of the world of the net. It was the feeling of two halves of me joined back into one. In the warp speed pace of stock trading, it was like the brakes were hit as gravity and time returned back to normal. It wasn't all that bad, at least until I re-evaluated the results of today's trades. I've been glued to the screen ever since morning without stopping to eat or drink. I was up over 7,000 moles for the day. If there were smooth days, things would go the way they did today and continue at this pace. It had been nerve-wracking calculating how things would go from last week. I could feel the fatigue in my body as I fell over my cross-legged sitting position and laid down. Only in this moment was my mind blank. Even in my dreams, I'd been handling financial transactions, so this moment was probably more relaxing than when I was asleep. Even the most effective leaders on Earth holding on to their hegemony were said to spend... What? Hegemony? What does that mean? I've seen the word before, but I don't know what it means. Hegemony means the political, economic, or military predominance or control of one state over others. Oh. Huh. We're said to spend anywhere from a few minutes to a maximum of an hour sleeping. I was very aware of this. If I were to plan my conquest of the world, it would be unfathomable to waste time sleeping. After all, someone somewhere in the world was working, continuing to effect some change, and sleeping meant to slip a small fraction from the forefront. Even for the goal of conquering the stock market, I had to partition out the limits of my brain capacity. Thus, total control was still a far-out concept. However, one day I will conquer the markets, extract endless amounts of money from it, and pile it all together to reach out and journey to undiscovered lands, opening the door to the next destination for mankind after the moon. It was like I stopped my brain cells from relaxing and filled my disconnected brain with a new seething blood flow. I took a deep breath and opened my eyes, ready to get up in one motion. What stopped my movement in its tracks, along with my thought process, was purely an accident. When I opened my eyes, everything in front of me was all pitch black. No. Or rather, it was pitch black cloth? One part of it had a unique and continuous contour to it, while another... Oh, I could already see where this is going. While another part appeared to be zigzagging layers of pleats. And beyond that, I could see through a break in the black fabric what appeared to be some sort of white fabric. It passed nimbly over my head. What came next into my vision was Hagana's face, as if she noticed something and suddenly turned around. Why did you open your eyes? Are you an idiot? Those were words that didn't seem out of place, even if you'd appended to it. She wasn't acting shy or embarrassed, and apparently she wasn't even angry. Instead, Hagana looked disdainfully at me. It was probably a bad idea to have laid down to rest right along the shortest path to the kitchen from the living room, but even then, shouldn't Hagana be more careful wearing something as defenseless as a skirt? Besides, her lack of shame would make even mannequins look inhibited. Just thinking about that made any advantage to the situation a bit lacking. Without a doubt, finding any excitement in the contents of Hagana's skirts seemed rather than a losing proposition. I'd like to stay a rational person if possible. That was why I got up and returned to my computer screen. Where's Lisa? Wait, I was so sure they'd show me an upskirt scene. And that's not me being perverted. Well, I mean, it's part of me being perverted. Shut up. It's... I don't know. Why would... They showed me the scene where she was only in her panties. Why wouldn't they show me an upskirt scene? The pacing of this one is a little weird. I heard Hagana's voice coming from her direction. She had a white mustache around her face while drinking milk, which certainly had a feat of nutritional intake and more amazing than chemical synthesis that What the fuck? Like I'd know. After having her make a fool out of me on top of having that idiotic white mustache on her face, I found myself rather irritated. At my rather short answer, Hagana showed her disapproval with raised eyebrows. Haven't you been here the whole time? Well, you know. Are you an idiot? I started to feel like every sentence she spoke would have those words tagged silently on the end. It was true that I'd been here the whole time, but I did not notice her getting up and leaving me behind during my deep concentration. I considered explaining that to her, but I found it to be so annoying that I just disregarded the thought. In doing so, I heard the darndest thing from Hagana. I was surprised. In fact, you could say that it was as if my brain shorted out, and for a brief moment, everything was blank. I turned around and just looked at Hagana with a "what?" expression on my face. Hagana looked back at me without any expression on hers, seemingly saying that I was nothing but a useless garbage. No matter how much of an effort I was making at being a gentleman, I realized I was reaching my limit with her. There was no way this absolutely cheeky girl was going to behave. The circuits in my head shifted gears, switching on adrenaline. My arms and legs seemed to have magically become supple. I swear, she said even another word, I was going to tackle her to the ground. When it came to inflicting pain without leaving any marks on the face or body, I happened to know Whoa! Whoa! Calm it down. I learned a lot from Eastern European immigrants who came from unstable countries where the secret police were in full force. I tried some of the techniques on myself, and I experienced hell. The only thought in my mind was the disillusion of seeing Hagana's cheeky face streaked with tears begging for forgiveness. It'd be good for Hagana to lift up the lid to the abyss of hell. That would teach her. As I started at Hagana with an icy glare, something happened that inhibited my rage. I'm back! Lisa returned through a door in the corridor that probably led to the church proper. In her hand was a burlap bag filled to the brim with all sorts of things. It was city policy to reuse anything that was reusable as much as possible. This led me to believe that her burlap bag was certainly an example of that, given all the multiple patch marks on it. Huh? As soon as she entered the living room, Lisa seemed to sense what was going on. Or rather, it would be obvious even to an idiot with Hagana silently staring daggers at me. I paid Hagana no attention at all, as I turned my attention back to the computer screen. Hagana? When Lisa called her name, Hagana turned to her like a dog to its owner. You'll kill off brain cells if you stay angry like that. The heck was that? I look up, of all things, saw Hagana nod in agreement. Are you so easily convinced by something said to trick children? As I looked down, dumbfounded, Hagana seemed to have given up dealing with me and proceeded to rub her fingers along her forehead. And then she closed her eyes, skillfully pouring milk into her cup and had a second drink. Before she drank it, she went through this mantra. Calcium appeases egg. What? Exactly. It didn't seem like she was trying to pull a fast one, but I was stumped as to whether this was a ploy or not. The only thing I knew was that Hagana hated my guts. I was sure that bit of calcium was a snide remark at me. It wasn't so much that her anger had subsided, that it was expressed in a different manner. Hagana finished her milk and then watched Lisa throw her groceries into the refrigerator. Lisa, auditorium key. Oh, didn't I give it to you? He didn't give it to me, and I also checked everywhere just in case. The only other possibility was that Lisa still had it, or he still... Oh, right, hold on a minute. With expert skill, and before Hagana even lifted a finger to point at me, Lisa went into action, searching her pockets and burlap bag. It was apparently hidden away in her wallet. This always happens when I make a habit of putting slim items in my wallet. Oh, I get it. Will you have enough time? Eat a bit of light. What? That was in the complete sentence. Even if I'm late, I will have to precisely explain everything. The fact that it was Lisa's fault, that bite. She said it without even skipping a beat. It wasn't something one would be happy about, but as Lisa was unfazed by her words, it looked like this was a fairly normal. That's true. Well, you better explain my screw-up clearly then. Yes, simple reason. Hagana said that as she took the key and turned away. The hem of her skirt turned lightly in sync with the graceful movement of her long, beautiful black hair. Her footsteps faded as she left the living room, and I could hear the door to her room close. Left there, Lisa sighed with relief, then let out a strange laugh as she looked at me. Soon after she closed her door, I heard it open and close again as Hagana returned to the living room. In her hand was a small black bag. I'll be up my way. Alright, see you later! Hagana only talked to Lisa, and without a single word to me, she left through the hallway. Or rather, her cold glance at me seemed to say, you're still here? It would appear that Hagana had identified me unconditionally as her enemy. She really is a bit of a tough girl to deal with. It seemed that Lisa's mutterings weren't calling me out as being at fault, but rather were somewhat supportive of me. A bit. Those were the first words out of my mouth. Just a bit. She really is a good girl. Is that really a standard line to say for someone that has issues? Lisa put a hand on her cheek as she looked down with a somewhat cold expression in her eyes. I'm not someone cold-hearted like you. What? I'm not someone cold-hearted like you, I would think. Okay, already. You don't need to be angry. That's better. Lisa smiled from ear to ear as she folded her empty bag carefully. Well, what should I do? Did you want to have dinner early? Huh? I gruffly retorted at a question I wasn't expecting. You couldn't really skip out on lunches now, could you? In fact, you didn't even really answer my question at all. What have you been doing? Judging by her surprised face, I could see that she wasn't trying to cross-examine me. I scratched my head and just mumbled a response. That's fine, I was just gonna make dinner. But what do you want to do? Do you want to eat here? Of course it's cheaper than eating out, but I make no guarantees about the taste. You better not make such bad jokes, I wanted to respond instinctively. But going out now to find a place for food was just much of a pain. If nothing else, I didn't have many qualms about it anyway. If you're offering food, what? If you're offering, then here is fine. I don't want to deal with the cops anyway. As long as it isn't poisonous, I'm fine with it. Not a problem, but if you want to eat now, I'll start cooking then. Well? Oh, well, wouldn't it be a pain to cook multiple times? That is true, but... Well, that's a surprise. Didn't think you'd be concerned. I might have run away from home, but that doesn't mean I'm some uncivilized delinquent. Lisa lightly sighed at my insistence. That sounds like something a common thug would say. Oh, shut up. Regardless of whether I cook now or later, I'm just letting you know that Hagana will be coming late. Actually, when I'm not watching out for her, she doesn't properly feed herself, so I was planning on eating with her. However, after seeing what happened earlier, I kind of wondered if you were the same as well. It appeared that there was some great animosity toward me from Hagana. I had no idea what had gotten her panties in a bunch. Did I cop a feel the first time I met her? Jesus Christ. What the hell is wrong with this game? I don't really remember it at all, but she didn't really have much of a... What the hell? Come on, man! Of course, it is my intention for all of us to sit at the dinner table in a friendship. Ugh. That came out of my mouth without thinking. Such a calm pacifist opinion isn't what I want to hear. Well, a ball that falls to the ground hits with the most force and impact. What the fuck? But things eventually subside, do they not? Such approaches solve many a problem. By my personal philosophy, I wanted to protest, but I felt relieved somehow. I was thinking it was something like shaking hands as a way of reconciliation. That'd be fine too. Believe it or not, I look at things pragmatically. That would be a big help. After I said that, I took a deep breath and returned to the subject at hand. I wouldn't mind eating earlier. Well, alright. I'll get to it then. Thank you. At my sudden politeness, Lisa giggled to herself like a spoiled brat.